and welcome to Author. I am your host Jasveer, and today I have Timm Schafer Aguilar, popularly known as T.S. Aguilar, with me. He is the author of Impetuous, The Odyssey of a Solitary Man, Shafted, A Mexican Tale, and more recently, Lifeline, The Case for Effective Cancer Immunotherapy. Timm, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Jasveer.
It's a pleasure to have you on the episode, Timm. Tell us a bit about your journey as an author.
My journey as an author. Okay, you're going right back to the very beginning. Well, it was that in the mid-1980s, I kind of quit my work I had done until then in engineering and information technology, and turned to journalism. That was also due to travels to Central America. And so I wrote first some reports about the environment and tourism. And then when, in particular, as far as environment was concerned, I became aware that dealing with one specific topic with one little story is not very satisfying, because it does not explain the background, the action, or for that matter, the inaction of certain characters. And so basically it was Christmas Eve, 1990. I was alone at home. I had no reason to celebrate or anything like that. And I sat down and started writing my first novel. And this was about the environment. Well, basically, the book turned out to be a commercial flop, and I would have had reason to give up writing after that. But there was an incident at the Leipzig Book Fair in Germany in 1991, after my book had been published, that encouraged me to keep writing. I was invited to read to the public. Yet at the time of my appearance, there were only 3 people in the audience: my publisher, a representative of the book fair, and one journalist. I started reading anyway. Totally absorbed in my text, I didn't look up until I finished and was knocked off my little chair by the standing ovation of a crowd that had tiptoed very quietly and filled the hall to the rafters while I had my nose in the book. So, when do you get a standing ovation as a writer? Anyway, that was what encouraged me to keep on writing. Okay, but then came a long break after that, because some people had persuaded me to go into script writing and make the movie out of this, etc., etc. And that was all basically nonsense. That was just dreaming, so to speak. And then I met my wife. She was a filmmaker, and we decided to make documentary films. And when we couldn't get enough financing for our work, we decided to become teachers, to work as teachers. And so that put a break into my writing. And finally, I picked up writing again about 6 years ago, basically by, first of all, taking notes, copious notes, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And I followed this very, very closely, because I was desperately looking for a cure for cancer, which of course was fruitless. There is no cure for cancer. And this I have to state very, very clearly. When people talk about that they were cured of cancer, I'm sorry, no. There's no such thing as a cure for cancer. You are palliated at best. So,
absolutely.
the thing is, most so-called survivors, on average, have 5 years of progression-free survival, meaning the cancer does not reoccur in a vicious form, but then suddenly it reoccurs in a far more vicious form and often untreatable form, and then it results with a fatality. That is a case, is exactly what we went through, and I followed the entire procedure very, very closely, kept a diary. My wife kept a diary as well. And then, of course, my research into this, it all ultimately resulted in the book Lifeline, the case for cancer immunotherapy, effective cancer immunotherapy. And the thing is there that I found out that the only hope we have is indeed cancer immunotherapy. And here comes some good news, because about a year ago at the University of Cardiff in Wales, United Kingdom, the researchers found a new cell, what they call a so-called killer cell, a white blood cell. They call it MR1. And this particular killer cell is capable of differentiating between cancer cells and healthy cells, and leaves the healthy cells alone. Now, this has to be investigated much, much further, and research is going on. But, and this is the really good news, together with the latest pharmacological mRNA approach that was taken, by the way, for the COVID vaccines by some companies, we have a chance of actually coming up with a universal cancer cure, not just palliate, but actually a cancer cure, by developing a vaccine that, first of all, prevents the occurrence of cancer, and secondly, when you have cancer, to actually cure you of cancer. So there we are.
This is something remarkable, if we can have a vaccine, possibly a cure, that's going to be really miraculous for millions of people who are suffering from cancer.
Yes,
and
indeed.
I think it's the biggest killer. I think bigger than COVID, sort of. Amidst all the hoopla about COVID, we've sort of forgotten about cancer. Nobody's talking about it, but I think cancer is deadly, and you rightly said, nobody can be cured. It can be delayed, at best, and there have been cases wherein people have fully recovered, and then finally after 5, 6, 7 years, it's back. It's really
exactly. When you look at this at the global figure, it makes the fatalities of COVID-19 that is so much publicized lately, and so on. It makes it look rather minor, because every year more than 20 million people are diagnosed with cancer, and over 50% of people afflicted with cancer die from the disease. So that means well over 10 million people die. Okay, when you look at it on a national scale, that means in Canada, 80,000 people die. This year will die this year of cancer, and it is something that actually, I must raise the flag a little bit for Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, and so on, who wrote at the beginning of, actually it was the end of last year, I think it was the 30th December last year, where he published an article about cancer being forgotten, being the forgotten disease, with all the hoopla about COVID-19.
True.
And he was so absolutely right. And he mentioned there in this article that we should not forget cancer, because due to the hospitals being so overloaded with the treatment of the COVID-19 patients, that they often had to forego the treatment of cancer patients, because there simply was no room. There was no personnel, and so on and so forth. So that poses a real danger. It will be very interesting to find out what the figures are for this year alone of cancer patients and the fatalities, of course. I hope it will not, turn out far, far worse than anybody had ever expected. So anyway.
Yeah, truly, I echo your sentiment, because I've worked closely with a lot of cancer survivors for my book, And my friend, he had introduced me to a cancer survivor called Timm Shah. He's a global speaker, and that's how I created the book Shahenshah. That's his biography. But I've been in constant touch with Ravindran. He's a cancer crusader. He had lost his family member because of cancer, and he became a cancer crusader. He's been doing that for the past 19 years, and he says that it's baffling how people are ignoring cancer patients for the last year and a half. We were hit by COVID in March 2020. At that time, I was still in India. I came to Canada in August 2020, and he was really struggling, with helping people because he couldn't go out. There was curfew outside. There was restriction on movement. There were no cabs available, and he was feeling helpless because he was trying to muster all the manpower, all the help he could get for these patients. Cabs, helpers, so that in case they can't reach hospital, at least they can get help at home. It was really, really tough. And I truly agree with what you've said. People have forgotten the biggest killer in the modern world, which is cancer. So guys, Lifeline, the case for effective cancer immunotherapy, is an eye-opening book. It's available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle in ebook and paperback format. I suggest you grab your copy now.
Yes, that would be, of course, very nice, because here's the one thing. Because of the ongoing research, and the ongoing research is extremely expensive. It needs tons and tons of money. When you look at the Cancer Research Institute in New York, which in itself does not do research, but it supports any kind of research project that is going on around the world, they distributed somewhere in the region of $3.5 billion and so on to these research facilities now, and that is even not considered sufficient, not considered enough. So I started as well my little contribution to cancer research by starting a public funding campaign on GoFundMe under the title of Help Cancer Immunotherapy Research. And on top of that, I contribute 50% of the sale of my paperback, not just the one book, of all my books. 50% of that goes to cancer research. So I am totally committed to this, and I will support it as far as my little bit of power permits me to do so. It is very important that people realize that we are on the threshold of coming up with a cure for cancer. But in order to do that, it does need more financing. And when you look at this, if you consider for a minute that everybody that is afflicted with cancer, their relatives, their family, their caregiver, would just donate $1, it would be $20 million. Okay, and this would be a real shot in the arm for this research, and I hope that people realize there is something that we can do. We can contribute to this, and this is very important. And what you just mentioned about the person you wrote the book about being left so alone, that is so true. That is so true. My wife and I, we really were desperate for some help, some assistance. And, often enough, we just didn't get it. We were left totally in the dark also about the state my wife was in. We were not given any information, what were the chances of survival, etc., etc. And this is why I basically called then the cause of death of my wife was not so much the cancer, but the negligence of doing something about it. And so, you see, there is one other thing. In 1999, two Canadian researchers in Alberta, they investigated the use of a D-L-methadone. This is not the methadone given to drug addicts. This is a very much watered down version of methadone in an aqueous solution. And they came to the conclusion, yes, it is useful for cancer patients. because it somehow, first of all, relieves the pain. It gives people again the vigor to live life, and so on. That is the first thing. But secondly, in conjunction with a much reduced form of chemotherapy, or much reduced dosage of chemotherapy, it actually starts to fight cancer. And this research was pursued more in Germany, particular by one oncology specialist, Dr. Friesen, Claudia Friesen, and what do you call it? Hospice care, somebody who runs a hospice, and so on and so forth. And they looked into this, and in the meantime, this this doctor that runs a hospice, he has treated over 5,000 patients in his hospice over the past 10, 12 years, and came up with fantastic results. Here, and what I'm getting at now is there are various what's called orphan medications that could help at least to alleviate the pain and possibly promote some form of killing the cancer cells, killing tumors, and so on, and not just in the so-called soft cancer like blood cancer and skin cancer, but actual tumors, and so on and so forth. And what I didn't understand was that this particular type of research, as well as the scientific reports, are totally, utterly ignored in Canada by the oncologists. And this is where I was struggling to get through to the doctors and say, why can't you look at this? Why can't you look at these particular scientific reports, the evidence, and at least give it a try? There's no harm done. If my wife will die in a month or two, well, then, but if this will help her, why don't you give it a try? No, completely out of the question. They will not consider it. They will not even look at this, okay? It's foreign for a start. Secondly, there is the excuse that in Canada, this medication has not been investigated and is therefore not legal, which is complete nonsense, okay? Which is absolute complete nonsense, because methadone is used widely, but for drug addiction, okay?
Yes.
And why not give it a shot for cancer treatment? And this is where I said, what is hell going on? There are other medications. Do you know one very, very common medication, aspirin, has been used or has been investigated by various oncologists, particularly in the United States. There's no support to finance an empirical clinical trial of the effect of aspirin on cancer. Now, now I come to something a little bit more specific, and that is breast cancer. They all make that big fuss about this huge progress they have made and so on about treating breast cancer. I'm sorry, but all women that listen, please be aware that over 600,000 women die every year as a result of the recurrence of breast cancer. Okay? And here, a Belgian doctor has investigated this and come up with a medication called ketorolac. And he said in his investigation that if taken just before the surgical intervention or just after the surgical intervention, does prevent the recurrence of breast cancer. However, here's the problem. His limited funding only allows him to investigate this with approximately 275 women. What he would need would be massive funding to test it out on a global scale for, I don't know, millions of women, maybe, okay?
And so, yeah.
Yeah, but for an empirical clinical trial, yet there's no funding available. And the sad part is, I understand that the pharmaceutical industry, of course, is not interested in that. They can't make money with healthy people. They can only make money with sick people. Okay, so they are not interested in curing anyone. But that the governments of these countries, may it be Belgium in particular, or the European Union, or for that matter, here in the United States, or in Canada and in the United States, there's no support for this at all, to finance an empirical clinical trial for this particular medication. And this is where I say, what is wrong here? What is wrong? Don't you want to cure? And when you look into this, there are more and more people who come to the conclusion the pharmaceutical industry is simply not interested in finding a cure.
Permanent cure, to be exact.
That's right. Permanent cure. You see, and then another thing that bothers me is about this misuse of the term immunotherapy. There's one clinic in the United States that makes big adverts about its treatment of injecting a particular medication into a cancer tumor and it kills, and that's immunotherapy. No, I'm sorry, it is not. That is not immunotherapy. Immunotherapy means to provide some kind of medication to the patient that will strengthen the immune system for it to fight the disease. And killing one cancer tumor is not immunotherapy. Okay, so this is where we are. We're very much at odds about what is immunotherapy, because there are some people who say, well, we have treated one particular type of cancer, but I'm sorry, one particular type of cancer. There are over 200 defined types of cancer. Okay, what about the other 199 or over 200 types of cancer? Does your medication do anything for that? Evidently not. Okay, so it's a pretty hairy kind of topic to get into, and you find out more and more. As I write in my book, that in many ways the medical profession is run by humans, and humans are sometimes very much tempted when a big financial offer comes their way to grab it and say, well, okay. So, as I state in my book there, in the United States, there was an investigation about the influence of financial benefits on doctors and so on, that 4 out of 5 medical practitioners in the United States are actually dependent on the pharmaceutical industry and the largesse of the pharmaceutical industry to hand out money. Well, I write about many instances and so on and so forth, and it's the same in Europe, by the way. And I think if it was investigated globally, you would find out more horror stories about the corruption and fraud that is going on as far as the sale of alleged cancer medications is concerned. It's a very, very sad aspect of cancer treatment.
Truly. And it's really worse in the developing nations, especially Africa and Asia. It's really worse. The whole doctor, pharmaceutical company, and the laboratory network, or nexus as we call it. There are huge documentaries in India where it's been proven that doctors would prescribe a specific laboratory, a specific test, because they are getting money from them. And same as with the medicines. So that's a topic that can be talked a lot. There have been a lot of investigations, and it's been proven pharmaceutical companies are not sort of looking for or pushing for permanent cure, as we were talking about. They're more than happy for people to come back. That's how their business will grow.
Yes. And when you look at their profits, it is absolutely disgusting. But the profits enable them to hand out money by the bucketful, and so on and so forth. And I write about one particular case there where a former pharmaceutical salesman from Long Island actually blew the whistle on one of the pharmaceutical, or his former employer, and stated very clearly how they enticed doctors to prescribe their medication against better knowledge. In other words, it was medication that wasn't for that particular type of disease. This goes beyond cancer, okay? But, ultimately, this company was sentenced to pay a penalty of some $675 million. Yeah, all right, fine, 675. That sounds like a lot to you and me, and wow, what a lot of money. That was a real harsh penalty. No, I'm sorry. Compare it to the amount of profit this company made. Okay,
which is small.
And it's somewhere like $3 billion profit they made. Yeah, and so on. And then 675 million. That's well, they took it out of petty cash, so to speak. Okay.
True. My boss used to say, education and healthcare are two of the holiest of the holy cows, right? As we call them in India.
Yes.
Cows are holy in India, but they are still business.
Yes. Here I must say something where I feel very strongly about, and that is the healthcare system. Now, I'm an OAP. That doesn't stand for odious and putrid, but rather old age pensioner. I look around, and then I look at the healthcare system, and I say, why is it that for all those things that afflict old people more so than the younger generation, the younger people, why is there no support for that? It starts with ocular glasses, hearing aids, dental work. Okay, nothing. It's excluded from healthcare. Excuse me, why? Why would you expect an old age pensioner to suddenly have something like several $1,000s lying around for either dental work or for hearing aid or for this and that? And and this is where I say our healthcare system is inadequate. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic has proven beyond any doubt how inadequate our healthcare system is. You see, consider here in Canada, over the past 10 years, 12 years, the federal government has slowly but surely reduced its contribution to healthcare to the provinces, and so on by some 35%. And I can only wonder why. What is happening here? Okay, is health not important any longer? I thought health was our greatest asset, so to speak. If you're healthy, you can do lots of things. When you're sick, well, you can't do anything. So please, to keep a society functioning and have everybody contributed, you have to have a healthy population. And when somebody is sick, they need healthcare. It's very simple. Okay, and so I'm sorry to put it very bluntly, but I think ultimately this pandemic has not hit hard enough. It should have hit 5 times stronger. If suddenly in Canada, imagine this, if suddenly in Canada, instead of 80,000 or whatever, no, what is it, 20,000, if instead of that, something like 100,000 people had died from COVID-19. And instead of the afflictions, whatever they were, 5 times as many. And so on a real pandemic all across the country, would the politicians finally have woken up and done something? Well, I should darn well think so, because politicians are not really interested in the public. They are interested about their own re-election, about wielding a little bit of power, a little bit of authority, and so on and so on. That's what interests them. And they couldn't care less. Once the voting has been done, they couldn't care less about the people who voted for them in many, many instances. And this is the real problem here in Canada in particular. Politically speaking, we don't have a real opposition. What we have here in my book, politically speaking, is bad, worse, and worst, not bad and good. Okay? And so on. And this is where I say, people, please, okay? Healthcare is very, very important. It is the crucible of our life. Okay, so please, do something more for healthcare. Strengthen the healthcare system. Don't reduce it.
True.
Okay.
That's again something that we have in common. Back in India, we've got the same thing virtually with no opposition. The current government is running amok. They are more or less trying to plug the hole by holding it. With their hands. They are not looking for permanent solutions. That sooner or later you're going to get tired holding that hole, and that opening is going to open up again, and the water is going to start flowing again. So whatever things that we are hearing about COVID, this treatment, that treatment, it's just a temporary plugging in the hole. They are not looking at, and this is evident with the mutated versions coming in every 3 or 4 months. There is a new version of the virus coming up. And
yes.
I think whatever we are doing, it's just we are trying to hold the opening. We are not looking at permanently plugging or maybe changing the entire pipeline.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
I think you're right. It should have brought in more discussion. It should have brought in more solutions, but somehow a lot has not been done.
Yes.
It needs to be thought from a different point of view.
Yeah.
Really loved our discussion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, this is almost unavoidable, that you somehow get away from the actual theme of cancer treatment and get into politics. Normally it shouldn't happen. But unfortunately, these two things, they're so closely intertwined, so linked, that you cannot avoid it. You have to talk about this. And this is where I think, this is when I look around here and talk to some people and so on, they always complain about the government, they complain about this and complain their member of parliament and so on and so forth. Yet, when the next election comes up, who do they vote for? The same people they complain about so bitterly. True. And say, well, please give me a break. Then, come up with something. And I think a prime example, not to say that Canada is like Lebanon, but a prime example is Lebanon right now, where the people are really out in the street and almost cause a revolution because they want to get rid of this entire old clique of politicians that caused the problems first and in the first place and do nothing to change the system and so on, have no idea of how to deal with the problems that exist there and so on. And this is, of course, an extreme case. But on a much reduced scale, we have the same thing in Canada. You look at this, and I said, well, Christ's sakes, people, if you're so unhappy, do you think that these other two parties, the big parties, that they would provide a solution? No, I'm sorry, they won't. Look at them. Okay, what they do is, everything they state is, don't upset the apple cart. Okay? And the one party that supports the present government right now, basically, their suggestions are so minimal that you could say, don't upset the apple cart. No, just paint the spokes of the wheels on the apple cart a different color, and suddenly everything will be all right. No, I'm sorry, it is not. Okay.
It's like trying to win a popularity contest in a high school.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I looked at the various programs, and although, of course, you might say, hey, this is ridiculous, but I looked at it, and the only party that I can support right now is the Rhinoceros Party, because with their outrageous statements, they're ridiculous programs. Yes, I know it sounds ridiculous, and it's a satire, but still, in satire is often a lot of truth. And so on, and they address certain things where you say, yeah, well, sure, why not? Have a couple of Rhinoceros Party members in Parliament and really stir up the crowd, and so on, and see what happens. But anyway, we're getting off the topic. Okay.
Yeah. No, but I loved our discussion. This was wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
You're doing you're doing really fantastic work in terms of cancer awareness. Your knowledge is impeccable, and you've done a lot of research. the only other icon that I can think in Canada is Terry Fox. He was phenomenal back in the 80s, of course. He succumbed to cancer himself, but then what he did in just over 1 year of his active, crusade was simply marvelous. And even after that, I think it's human nature. If it hasn't happened to me or my family members or anybody I know, why would I talk about it? That's the common attitude. If cancer has not sort of affected me, my family members, or maybe anybody in the friend circle, why the hell should I talk about it? I think we need to change that attitude. And cancer is a very serious issue. More serious than COVID. People wake up. We need to talk about it. We need to discuss about it, and we need to spend more money researching about it.
Yes, exactly. Now, I would just like to raise one little point in here. I was not just caregiver to my wife, but just over 20 years ago, my mother also was afflicted with cancer, but that was over in Europe, in Germany. And here was the significant difference. Whenever I went to the hospital and so on, the first thing that happened was the doctor took me aside and gave me a complete rundown of what the status was, what were the chances, and so on and so forth, and for survival or being treated successfully, and so on and so forth. And then one day he took me aside and he was very open about this, and he said, I'm sorry, but your mother, we don't have any kind of treatment for her, and so on. It has spread all over, and her last, or rather this kind of do not resuscitate type of document, which is called in Europe die with dignity request, and so on and so forth. And he said, we have to abide by that. And I said, fine. So I took her out and so on. And 2 weeks later, indeed, my mother died peacefully. But these last 2 weeks, they were full of chat and humor and laughter. And, and I was so happy that I could, give these last few days of my mother's life some real meaning for her as well as for me. Because whatever there had been, over the years and so on and so forth, was simply the slate was cleared. It was absolutely, a wonderful, wonderful relationship. And so, I was looking then at the time with my wife. Why was it impossible for any doctor, and I mean really every oncologist, to simply state bluntly and clearly, this is the status, and this is what we can do, and this is what we cannot do, and so on, and this is her chance for survival, and so on? Nothing. We were kept totally, utterly in the dark, and so on and so forth. And this is what I found so truly, truly disgusting. And this is where I would say it is a problem in North America, not just in Canada, but it's generally. I don't know why the medical profession in North America feels, so reluctant to talk honestly to the patients as well as the caregivers, the family, and so on, honestly about this is the status, this is where we're in. Why can they do that in Europe, and why can't they do it here? And so on. This is where I say, people, this is a major point for every medical professional. Please open up your mouth, state clearly as to what the status is of the patient. What is the chance for survival? What is the chance for successful treatment, at least for a prolongation of life or an improvement of the quality of life, and so on. And nothing, absolutely not a word, okay? On the contrary, twice we were introduced to a doctor who was talking about deaths and the inevitability of death and so on and so forth. Yeah, sure, of course, everybody dies. Every living organism eventually dies. But what is this nonsense? Here is a sick patient that needs treatment. Can we talk about that? No. When I then got angry with one of the doctors and said, look, instead of talking to my wife and me about death and, how we should prepare, You should maybe try to find a doctor in Canada that is willing to prescribe DL-methadone on a trial basis. Okay, at my own risk, at our own risk. Okay, because it has helped over 5,000 patients in Germany. Why can't we do that in Canada? She was totally insulted, disgusted. She's up and out, and poof, I won't have anything to do with this guy. Fine, all right. And this is where I say, people, the doctor-patient relationship in Canada has to improve. Okay, I'm not saying that there are not good doctors around. No, the majority of doctors, the majority of medical practitioners are caring and competent professionals, and there's no question about that. But why is it that in our particular case, in our entire encounter with all the medical professionals, there were two people that can single out who truly cared. One was actually a nurse practitioner, and the other one was a young, up-and-coming oncologist. But unfortunately, this young and up-and-coming oncologist had no influence on the scheme of treatment, of therapy, of anything. And this is where I say, why was it so difficult for the older professionals, for the experienced professionals, to be as honest and straightforward as these two medical professionals? And here's something I write about in Lifeline. This is Dr. Curlew is his name. Hang on here. Let me have a quick look here. He is actually practicing in Northern Ontario, and he single-handedly takes care of, I believe, 5 communities, flying around and so on and so forth. One doctor taking care of 5 communities. That tells you something about this. So, where is this page here right now? I'm in the right section. Yeah. Oops. Okay. All right, here, let me read this. There's not much more to be said about Kathy's case history of cancer treatment gone horribly wrong, except that it provides a glimpse of Canada's much touted and lauded universal healthcare system. The statement of a doctor who practices in Canada's Northern Ontario provides a confirmation of my criticism. He says, the system isn't broken. The system is doing what it was originally designed to do. It was never meant to provide care. It was meant to deny care. They have this phrase in medicine called the Hippocratic Oath. We take it when we graduate from medical school. It means to do no harm. Sometimes I see my role as a physician to minimize the harm that the system is already doing to the patients. And I think his statement, that it really supported me. I had found something. Here was a medical professional who, with every bit of work that he can do, is trying to live up to the Hippocratic Oath. More than just not to do harm, but actually to help his patients, and so on, be totally honest with them, and so on. And I looked at this and I said, yeah, why is there only one doctor like that is reported about? It was from a report on CBC several years ago, but it is so true what he said. And I feel, this is something politicians should stick right on their mirror so that they can read it every morning, when they look at it, in the bathroom mirror, and so on and so forth, and should please become aware of this. We have to do much, much more for our healthcare system to make it effective and to help the sick people, to get them healthy again. And to have them as contributing members to this society. And this is ultimately, where we again slide off into politics.
No, this was really hard hitting, and truly, healthcare industry is like a machine, right? Huge machine run by cogs, run by bells, and there are good cogs. There are of course bad cogs there who run it as business, who run it as a profit-making machine. But there are good doctors, and there are of course bad doctors as well, and to sum it up, the acronym honesty is the best policy is needed. Nobody is asking for miracle. All people are asking is honesty. Can you do it or can you not do it? I really would not want to talk in detail about my father's case. He suffered a lot towards the end, but then you treat a doctor like a god, but then when God kicks your ass, you can't do much about it. You can't say anything about it. So that is the kind of expression or experience that I had when it came to my dad. And you can't argue with God, so to speak. But doctors are God. And I think more research is required in non-traditional treatment like Ayurveda back in India. There are so many experts who are doing wonderful. Then the clinic in Germany that you talked about. I think we need to open our eyes. Researchers need to open their minds and move away from allopathy a bit and move into traditional and old ways of treatment. And maybe they might find a solution in the good old solutions like Ayurveda. That's
at least to investigate it, to seriously investigate it, and to seriously subject it to medical trials and to see what happens. You see, the thing is, it would help not just in curing things, but also by preventing to put certain misconceptions on the garbage dump where they belong. Like, look at this. In Asia, there's this big thing, ground up rhinoceros horns, ground up elephant tusks, and so on, is good for erectile dysfunction. Excuse me, hello, all this material is the same as your fingernails. So why do you need the ground up horn of a rhinoceros and kill this marvelous animal, and so on, that you can live with your misconception about erectile dysfunction? Okay, just chew your fingernails, and if that doesn't have any effect, it doesn't work, does it? But no,
they've got to kill animals.
Let's kill the animals. Let's destroy them, and so on and so forth. And this is something really, really sickening in a way. But as you say, the Ayurvedic medication should definitely be investigated much, much more. I was at one time when my wife and I were in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman. I suddenly came up with a kind of a lame left leg, and we went to various doctors, and they well, I don't know what it is. It could have been a brain stroke or some. What? Excuse me, this is my left leg, not my brain. And so on and so forth. But anyway, and then we came to an Ayurvedic medication or a clinic there, and the guy checked it all out and tested it and so on and so forth. And he said, well, first of all, I have to note that you have a problem with your stomach. And I said, well, what's that got to do with my left leg? And they said, no, it's just as an aside, so you should do something, take some medication to straighten out your stomach. Okay, fair enough, and so on. And then he said, okay. So then he said, no, it's actually, you don't need medication. What you need is some vigorous type of exercise here. And we have this particular machine, and it was like what do you call these things where you walk on these machines, and so on and so forth. But it had these very like ball bearings, okay, and so on and so forth, for me to step on and walk, and it helped. Oh, okay. It didn't do away with it, but it certainly improved my entire condition, And then he told me ultimately, don't worry about it. It will probably be gone in 4 weeks or so, all by itself, as long as you keep on taking long walks and exercise and so on and so forth. It's probably due to you not having exercised enough. Okay, fair enough. And indeed, he was right. So there we are. Okay. And it was a very small fee we had to pay. I mean, and I was very happy with it, So there are certain things, definitely, they should be investigated. They should open their mind to all sorts of other possibilities. It's not just the modern medicine, but also traditional medicine. Also here in Canada, there are. I'm thinking about some years ago. It must be more than 20 years ago, where they had investigated the smooth sumac, a tree, and where some natives claim that by preparing an infusion, like a tea, from the smooth sumac. Now, I don't know which particular part, whether the leaves or the branches or the roots. I have no idea, unfortunately. But this infusion prevents women getting breast cancer. And I thought, hey, man, this is something fantastic. It should be investigated. But ever since, I have not heard anything about it. And so why was this suddenly pushed aside? Okay. I mean, isn't it possible that we have something really, really significant here and so on, where the natives knew something that we didn't know, that we don't know, and let's honor them by investigating this a bit further and see if we cannot come up with some solution to this really, really nasty problem, and so on and so forth. So it's just one little example. There are many other examples of natives coming up with certain healing methods and so on and so forth. And of course, they're pushed aside. It's just of no consequence. I'm sorry. If a patient is cured of a particular sickness, of a particular disease, it is significant. Don't tell me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
and doesn't matter if it's Ayurveda, if it's Chinese medicine, or if it's the native medicine you're talking about, sumac tree. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as the person is treated. How does it matter if he was treated by chemotherapy or Ayurveda or Chinese medicine or by the sumac tree? I think we need to open our mind, and researchers need to open their mind. Scientists need to open their mind and move beyond the conventional allopathy. And we were talking about Germany. Germany is one of the largest producers of homeopathic medicine. In India, homeopathy is a huge alternative for allopathic medicine. And most of the medicines that you see in homeopathy over there, they are manufactured in Germany. My father was a big follower of homeopathy. And so, the time has come to look at alternate ways of treatment, holistic treatment that we are talking about. And this was a lovely conversation, Tim. I really enjoyed talking to you. And you're doing some of the most fantastic work when it comes to awareness, spreading awareness about cancer and cancer treatment. I would love to connect further, with you and bring you back on the podcast. So that the listeners can learn more from you. Thank you so much, Tim, for taking time out to be with us. It was really an honor talking to you. The conversation.
I thank you very much of having looked at my profile and found me worthwhile talking to. So I really appreciate you having called on me, and I thank you very much. And anytime you feel like talking about a different topic that you may have gleaned from my profile as to what I could talk about, then I'd be very, very happy to talk to you about this. Also, my further research into cancer treatment, of course, I'd be very glad to provide updates and see where we can go from here.
Right. Thank you, Tim. And please tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, they can get in touch with me, of course, via my email. The easiest way would be to look on LinkedIn. If you happen to be a member of LinkedIn, look at my profile, Timm Schafer Aguilar, and there you have my email address. Now, for all those that are not on LinkedIn, I give you gladly my email address, and that is Timm Schafer, TIMMSCHAFER yahoo.com. Okay, so just type it in and I'd be very happy to hear from you. And any question you may have where I might be able to help you, I'd be very happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Tim. So guys, that was author Timm Schafer Aguilar for you, popularly known as T.S. Aguilar. His books are available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle, and of course you can get in touch with him for the broader topic that we've just covered today, which is cancer and cancer awareness. That was a lovely conversation. I enjoyed it. I hope you all also enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking time out to listen to us. I'll be back with another episode shortly. Till that time, take care and thank you.
Thank you very much, Jasveer. Thank you.